going public. Also, Nexo, the platform, tuck and tail, run away from regulators. And is this a regulatory dead end? It's going to be a great show. We're going to get right into it. On the top right, we have Cowboys of Crypto holding it down. He might lasso in some hot takes. On the bottom right, we have Joe Parys, and I'm going to call you out. You got to follow us on ATB Daily, Joe. You have to follow. You specifically, they just let me know that you're not following. Follow. So
I think I am. I think I am following, but I'll double check that
you're
right
lying
now.
to me.
Lies. Joe's lying.
Hannah lied. All right, moving on the bottom left, Crypto Keeper. He can't believe it. I can't believe it either. Holding it down for Danger, Close, Alpha, and Debate Crypto OG. And on the top left, one of my favorite non-coding coders is Forrest, and he's looking at ChatGPT so he could steal your Satoshis. We're kidding, of course, but we were talking ahead of the show how troublesome some of these phishing attacks and hacks might be in the future. So you might want to be careful. I do want to share one thing real quick. We do have a giveaway. This is Christmas. It ends on the 14th. We're going to be giving away a bunch of hoodies and t-shirts if you want to enter. Just make sure you follow ATB Daily or hit merch. Also, we're moving on January 2nd. So make sure you are subbed to the new YouTube channel, and it is going to be pinned in our tweet. But like I said, we're going to be talking about Circle, but let's check out the market caps of some of these, do a little market watch, and it'll lead us into our first story. Crypto market, shockingly flat. We have Bitcoin, barely up. It's up 0.08% at this point. But the market cap I wanted to showcase was USDC versus Tether. Now, you can see Tether with a $65 billion market cap, USDC 42. Now, Forrest, we were watching these market caps. We've seen USDC just catch up to Tether, keeps catching up. Before we talk about USDC, I want to talk to you about Tether. Were you surprised that Tether has survived, and not only survived, is still the number one stablecoin? And what do you predict a year from now, 2 years from now? Do you think Tether is going to just be number one for the foreseeable future, or is USDC nipping at its heels?
Yeah, I think USDC is absolutely nipping at its heels, especially after what we've recently seen in the crypto space with the collapse of FTX. Nobody wants to, trust is at an all-time low, and I think that's good. That's good that trust is low, good that people are being a little bit more careful. Now, I think USDT, and actually this was a tweet that Ben, BitBoy, put out, talking about how some crypto companies have been able to finagle or almost scam their way into solvency. I don't necessarily think that USDC is on the brink of just collapsing, and I don't necessarily think that there's immediate alarm or immediate FUD. But I do think over the longer term, we're going to see people shift to stable coins that are more trustworthy. Not that any are particularly trustworthy, but obviously USDC is a little bit more on the up and up than USDT, obviously. What I'd like to actually see, and what I think would be healthy regulation for the space, and again, I throw out the term regulation and people start freaking out a little bit, but what I think would be a healthy step in terms of regulation for the space would be USDC either going public, which I believe we're about to talk about, or potentially just working with the government to be 100% fully backed and make sure that everything's proof of reserves, deposits are backed. Having a stable coin that people can trust is going to be good for the space.
All right, and we'll talk about the specifics of the SPAC, and let's just share the definition before we say the word too many times and you don't know. Special Purpose Acquisition Company. Think of it the best way, a blank check company. This SPAC can create an IPO, meaning it will go public without the underlying company, without the commercial operation. So you get your IPO, and then you kind of almost backdoor in a crypto company. Well, it seems like they are giving up that strategy. Now, Cowboys of Crypto, when Forrest was talking about backing, and this should be backed, we want backing. What is ideal backing to you? Is it 1-to-1? Is it with gold? Is it with dollars? Is it with Bitcoin gold stocks? Is it 1 to 1.1 ratio? What's the Cowboys of Crypto template for good backing for a stablecoin?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone on the stream. I think what is good to me is transparency. I don't care if it's 1-to-1, 1-to-1.1. That doesn't really matter to me. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not that big brain that knows like the mathematical equations or whatever. I'm lizard brain. Just keep it simple, keep it transparent. But I do see 5 major reasons why they are pulling out of this market. If I could share with those, or if
go for it. We love lists.
Number one.
And then give me your next top 5 altcoins.
I'll do
top
that
5
too.
moonshot potential. 50x guaranteed.
DZ coin is number 1. ADA Junkies is number 2. Okay, by the way, there are 5 here. Number 1, FTX rocked the market like a shotgun turd rocks a toilet bowl. Okay, so if it's all unstable, we don't know what's happening. People don't want to invest. Number 2, regulation is still unsure. The SEC and the FTC, they're fighting over crypto like 2 divorcee parents over a baby and a house. Okay, number 3 is the bear market. People are still skittish. People don't know if it's going to go down, and so we don't know. In 2020, we pumped money into the system. In 2021, we saw the boom. In 2022, we tightened, and in 2023, I think a lot of people are assuming a big bust, like a rap girl in a video. So number 4, I think it's rare when 2 people break up that they both amicably break up, right? I think it's always one-sided, and I think we're going to see whose heart is really broken here. And there's like language there saying like, hey, we both boards decided this is going to be a good breakup for the 2 of us. I'm not so sure, and I think we're going to see in the future who gets the next partner. And finally, number 5, I think during this time people like to play conservative. I think rightfully so, and as conservative as like an Amish handmaiden. And I think that this is carrying out throughout all the markets. I think this is going into big businesses and small people like you and me. And I think that's just what's happening in those 5 particular reasons.
All right, the OG Amish, not those fake Mennonites. You can't be Amish and drive a car. That's all I'm saying. That's the world I grew up in. That's the world I want to keep growing up in. Buddy. That's you. I don't have any strong takes on Amish. All right, Crypto Keeper. Now, I saw you shaking your head at that first comment when it came to the toilet bowl. I won't ask you about that as much as I would like. He did bring up the language they were using. I found a quote. They had mutually agreed to end the merger. It does seem like public facing. They're trying to say, hey, we all were in this, 50-50, but maybe Cowboys bringing up a good point. Do you think that Circle maybe really, really wanted the SPAC and, the SPAC maybe backed out? Or do you see Circle saying, maybe we'll pause and have a higher valuation? So they were the ones who, maybe took the ring away. Who do you think, if one were to, say this is a reality show, who's given the rose and who didn't receive the rose here?
I think ultimately Circle probably has kind of called the shots. With the uncertainty in the space right now as it relates to regulations, anything regulatory is just a big fat question mark right now. And I think the SEC, I think our government likes it that way because as I've talked about a lot before and talk about this a lot, they want to position themselves to be able to be the ones that benefit from what's happening as it relates to any and all regulation. Well, since they don't have a firm footing in what they really want to do, or they're not prepared to present it yet, they just kind of keep everybody in limbo. And so I think when you're looking to go public, you want to raise a bunch of money, but ultimately you want to know where you're headed. And I think in this instance, if there's the question mark of whether these private companies, these private entities are even going to be able to operate within the bounds of the law as a stable coin, I think you got to ask yourself the question, maybe we should pull back, maybe we should wait until we get some more clarity. And I think for me, it's literally that simple. They just don't know which way is up at this point. And once they figure that out, they can take the next step forward. Thankfully, though, they're not like a, SBF and just willing to, commingle funds from anywhere and everywhere and just, any way you can get it, go after it. I think it might be a really smart move for them to hold off and wait. Especially, under the circumstances that the government has kind of put everybody in, just this little chokehold, and you know what I mean? Nobody knows what's going on.
Fun fact, Utero just shared, USDT was created by a washed-up Disney star. Check it out. It is a fun little story if you want to go down that Google rabbit hole. Utero, also a good Nirvana album. Now, Joe Parys, there is a theory floating around now. I kind of agree. I think there's a lot to validity to what Keeper said. They probably don't know the answers that they need to know to move forward with this, but there's talk of USDC becoming the CBDC of America. If that's the case, do you think them going public would have hurt those chances? Could that have played a role here?
Well, thanks, DZ, for having me back on the show. Really appreciate being here, and shout out to everybody else. But you know, it's going to be really interesting to see what does happen. There's just way too much unclarity. Will it become the CBDC? I don't think so. I think the government wants to have way more control, to be completely honest. And I think that if you look at what's going on, you know, behind like closed doors of Circle, like I'm sure there's a lot more that we just don't know. And, you know, I think the SEC is really just doing their due diligence, especially from what's happened with FTX and all this other nonsense that's going on. It's like they're in like no rush to really like make a rash decision. And so I think that, you know, while Circle looks good, everything on the back end, like I wouldn't be panicking. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's an added risk right now to, you know, cryptocurrency is very risky, right? Like everything is very risky. Is this probably like the lowest risk of the risk? Sure. But I want everyone to know that there's still risk, right? Like you have to understand that like when you turn your dollars from the bank account into USDC, it's not exactly the same thing there. So, you know, that's kind of my take. I think the government's going to have their own CBDC. I don't think USDC is going to be it. And yeah, but it'll, you know, who knows? Maybe I'll be wrong.
Are you?
I've been wrong before.
Wait. You're letting me know that because stable is in the name, it isn't stable. Stable's in the name, Joe. And just like other coins with moon in it, I expect that to moon. It's just it hasn't happened yet. Any day now. Day now.
For
All right.
sure.
Well, news to me. I'm gonna have to take a look at my portfolio. I kind of want to stay on this real quick now. Forrest, what do you think of that as far as a CBDC? Do you think that Circle ever had a shot, or was the government always just going to make it internal? It would be created from scratch.
That's a really interesting topic. I don't know. I think it's ultimately going to be up to the government, and the government's going to have the control to do whatever they want. And there's probably pros and cons to doing it each way. If they want to absorb Circle into like the Fed or something, they could just go to Circle and say, hey, we're going to either regulate you to death or we're going to absorb you, and you're going to be our CBDC now. At the end of the day, the government has, I think, most of the control here and however they want to dictate it. Now, one benefit to the government, I think, would be from a trust perspective, almost having, you could almost have like a quasi CBDC where it's still kind of run through Circle, but the Fed or the government kind of controls it in a way that they can accomplish their goals. And it's still, you know, a private entity or a company. So it's not necessarily seen as like the shadowy government CBDC. Again, we're kind of just speculating here. I think it's really too early to tell, but it would be interesting to see. Again, it's just too early.
All right. Well, you know, I know it's a little early, but Cowboy, there is going to be a future. There is going to be a CBDC. I think we all agree. We have different timelines, but that is our future eventually. Are you going to hold a CBDC if, you know, say it's what you have to use at a gas station? Or a better question is cash dead? Are we going to be forced to use this eventually?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. This is interesting philosophically and for a couple of reasons. Number one, no. I will not hold a CBDC unless they force me. Okay, I do not willingly.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
No,
yes, you
I will not. I will do. Let me change my mind. I will do everything in my power to not hold a CBDC. But I'm just going to say it. You're just a more handsomer liver king. But I want to let you know something that Bitcoin will force us to not. Or CBDCs will force us into Bitcoin. This is my personal belief. I think that if they come out with a CBDC, everyone's going to be like, why should I go to the CBDC when I could just have the real thing, baby? I could just go to Bitcoin and hold the real asset that has real wealth. Why subjugate ourselves that like we already have? We've already done to the credit card system, already done to the debt system. Why do it in a financial monetary policy? I heard this quote, and I think it's super important to say on this stream, and I think everyone will agree with me, is that the future slavery will not be done by AI and robots, but it will be done by the control of the monetary policy. And that's what they're trying to do. They're going to try to control that monetary policy to control you and me and push us and subjugate us into slavery. They could do all kinds of things that we wouldn't even dream of doing, pulling funds out or forcing us to pay taxes or forcing us, if we donate to some religious center or one particular political party, they could, blacklist us or do all kinds of things. I don't like it. I would do everything in my power to not go the CBDC route.
Legally and lawfully, of course. Now, more handsome liver king, let's just say I've minted the DCA, I minted Danger Close Alpha, I'm in the Discord, I went to the boot camp, I've learned all these survival techniques. What are some of the not scary ways? Let me specify that. The non-scary, the lethal, lawful ways we can fight against this future where government has entire control over our monetary system. Is it demand cash? Do we pay our property bills in rolls of pennies at the local office? I mean, what can we do as lawful citizens to at least try to push this back as long as possible?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that we have a couple things fighting against us. First of all, for all the people that don't have a crypto-centric mindset already, people that are normal people who aren't crazy into Web3 and into crypto, they're going to be lazy as it relates to this, and they don't understand the crypto space. So the problem is going to be that they're not going to understand what the benefit of Bitcoin or what the difference between going with Bitcoin and a CBDC. It's going to be presented by the government, and they're going to say, hey, listen, we're just moving away from cash and we're going to go everything digital. And they're probably going to give all these little spiffs, and they'll give you an amount of time to turn your money back in, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, it will be forced upon you for the exact reasons that Cowboy was just talking about, for effectively slavery. I mean, they are going to have full control, full oversight, full purview of everything to do with your money. I think it's funny. I saw a meme that was showing like all of the ridiculous things that the government has done with money and basically them looking the other direction. And then they had a telescope out looking at a $600 transaction on Venmo. It really says something. It's like, hey, listen, there's so much wrong with what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say rules for thee, but not for me. I actually tweeted, when you look at that audit, the amount, and then sweating $600 on the average citizens.
So ultimately, there's just so much wrong with the system that we have today, and people are going to be forced to use it, which is why I was giving Cowboy a hard time. You will be forced to use it, but the way that we opt out is actually education, educating people on what's actually happening. That's part of the beautiful thing of social media today. It's a blessing and a curse, but part of the blessing is people are now able to be introduced into this system, ushered into what is crypto all about, what is Bitcoin all about, how do we opt out of the system? And I think opting out of the system is picking that decentralized option, that option that is for the people, by the people. And I do think that option is Bitcoin. Whether or not we'll actually be able to do it and get enough people together that are educated enough, that push hard enough, that are actually able to achieve it, I don't know. I'm kind of doubtful on that, just because, again, people are lazy and they want convenience. But at the end of the day, I think that's probably the best way to be able to opt out, is to get into something decentralized that's not controlled and centralized and working.
All right, before I go to Joe, Cowboy, you can't stop shaking your head hard enough. What are you disagreeing with here?
I agree with everything he has to say, except for one thing. I do not think that education is the key to turn the masses. And this is simply because I've seen people who are educated about freedom and they don't take the leap. It has to be pain. It has to be feeling. It has to be emotive. Education in itself is not enough. This is why people like Dave Ramsey is out there. They get emotive with you. They don't just tell you like don't spend money that you don't have. They're like, run away. You know what I mean? Like people have to experience true pain and true resentment before they start to make these.
I will agree with that. Add an asterisk. It does require pain, or it's just so easy you don't really have to spoon feed
pain and or convenience.
An example I would give is 15 years ago, maybe 12. I don't know the timeline. No grandparent was comfortable with a smartphone. I would never. I can't. I don't know how. Now you fast forward today. Sure, that person was 65 10 years ago. They're 75, but they taught themselves how to use a smartphone at the age of 68, 69, 71. So that's the example I would throw. All right, final question on this topic before we talk about Nexo. Joe, I know your favorite stablecoin is BUSD. I'm kidding. We always joke about Pancake Swap. So I don't know, real quick, on Pancake Swap, you like USDT or BUSD?
Probably BUSD, just because it's like there's more liquidity for a lot of those pairs, because it's Binance and it's
Pancake Swap, man. I love it. I haven't used it in a while, but I will use it again. My question for you is about America's CBDC rollout. Now, I don't need a specific date from you, but I kind of want to ask about the general timeline with China. Very quick, very swift rollout of their CBDC. It's not nationwide, but we had heard nothing about it, and then 2 months before the Olympics, hey, we're going to have this ready for the Olympic Village. And sure enough, they had it, and they succeeded with that. Can we expect a similar swift rollout, no pun intended? Or is this going to be like us trying to build a hospital during the pandemic and it's just going to take us forever, too much red tape, and we'll fall on our faces?
I mean, my gut definitely says that like it's going to take forever. Like everything takes.
Is that a good thing or a bad
the,
thing? It's kind of both, but what do you say?
I mean, I'd rather have it take forever. I mean, there's an interesting fact already. Yeah, I mean, here's why. Like 92% of the world's currency is already digital. Like, how often do you use cash right now anyways? Like, almost never. I almost never use cash in like very specific situations. And so, like, I do think it's coming, DZ. Like, I think it's inevitable. But my point is like, I don't think that like it's like this thing that we need to do tomorrow. Like, there's some crazy, crisis happening. It's like, no, we have crypto. We have, debit cards, credit cards. Like, we already got all these like payment options. You got PayPal. It's like, this isn't like super duper urgent. I don't believe. I think that they're going to work on it and they're going to get it right, or to the the best of their ability. And I think that like the US will probably just sit back and just see what happens with like all these other countries that are doing it. That's what I would do. That would be the smart thing, is like, hey, we don't want to just like launch this in 2 months and then like all of a sudden have a lot of issues. I think we should just sit back, like let it happen. We know it's going to happen. And if I were to give a timeline, DZ, I don't know, in the next 5 years, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be swift like China. And on one end, it's great. It's great for my personal freedom. On the other end, I'm like, are we able to keep the lights on 5 years from now? I don't know. Like, I lived in Texas. We weren't able to. So who knows? Anyways, moving on before I, start turning into Ray Dalio here. Let's talk about Nexo. This was a headline today. This is on Decrypt, to phase out service in the U.S. after hitting dead end with regulators. But I really wanted to share the quote. I feel like it really tells the story. The U.K. company said in a statement, the U.S. refuses to provide a path for enabling blockchain businesses. Forrest, why would the U.S. refuse to provide a path forward for crypto businesses? Why would they have that strategy?
Is at this point, is it malicious? Is it on purpose, or is it just a complete? Is it people just not knowing what they're doing?
Yes.
Is it? I don't know the answer. Is it?
Yes.
Is it incompetence?
All three.
I think at the end of the day, like the majority of people that are in crypto full time don't understand blockchain and crypto, let alone U.S. regulators. And I say that I'm not like. I love all the people that are in blockchain and crypto, but the blockchain and crypto community can't agree on what the top 5 best coins are. Like you have people that are diehard Dogecoin people. Dogecoin's in the top. It's like the number 8 cryptocurrency. It's ahead of Cardano and Polygon. And we're living in a world that's still very, very immature, a crypto space that's still very, very immature. And when the blockchain and crypto space and blockchain and crypto natives can't even agree on a path forward, I think it makes it even harder. So I'm not trying to defend the US or defend regulators. I'm just trying to kind of paint a picture of like this stuff's not easy. And what would make it easier is if there was a task force or there was an entity whose sole purpose was to provide I'm not saying provide regulation, but regulatory clarity. I think that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants regulatory clarity so we don't stifle innovation, and so that crypto companies can actually have a path to move forward, or a set of rules or guidelines to play within, so we don't get a situation like Library where years after they've built this project and they've spent so much time and invested so much time and energy into the Library and this project and this coin, they get caught on a technicality that they couldn't have predicted in advance. So regulatory clarity is absolutely needed, and hopefully we get it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we need to be the Spider-Man meme where he takes the glasses off. Oh, now I can finally see. I want to share this as well. These are some of the states. They did have the earn product where you can earn interest in 8 states, but state security regulators in California and several other states took action against Nexo's parent company. The entire time, Cowboy, they were in talk with regulators. According to Nexo, they've been talking actively with the SEC for 18 months. Now, a full year and a half later, they're finally walking away. Do you think that there was maliciousness on the SEC's part and maybe stringing them along for 18 months? Or do you think this is maybe from the top down, everything just keeps changing every other week and they don't know what to tell Nexo? Is, maybe acting in earnest here?
Yeah, if I was waiting, if people were waiting on me to set the rules of the game, I would think long and hard about how I would position myself to come out of the rules on top of everyone else. And I think that's what's happening here. I think that US regulation is trying to position itself properly, and maybe they've got, and I'm not smart enough to understand like what's all happening and what players are, in play here. But let me just pause there for a second. The other side of it is that Nexo, I don't trust them either. Okay, Nexo seems pretty centralized to me now, and I don't trust any centralization. Either centralized logic with centralized planning with the government, or a centralized, CeFi anything. I don't want to do that. I want to be DeFi. That's personally. I want to put my big boy pants on. I want to walk down the street knowing that I'm taking care of my own stuff. I could lend out to something like Aave, something decentralized, because here's the reality. Centralized planning and centralized power leads to corruption, okay, all the time. Centralized control leads to slavery, and centralized decision-making leads to self-interest. And I think that's what's happening here. And the United States is known for central planning. This is the Fed. The market participants like you and me, little fish, and even big businesses, we don't get to dictate when everyone starts making money. It's the Fed. And we don't get to dictate when people are losing money. It's the Fed. And so I think my point here is this, is that the US runs off of centralized planning. So what makes us think that they won't want to run the regulation like that as well? Regulation is just another word for centralized logic, centralized thinking, and it leads to self-interest.
All right. Crypto Keeper, very powerful words. I don't think you would disagree with any of that. I want to ask another question because, maybe this is a change of strategy, because there was a big SEC move that happened recently. That was the library case, where it seems like, everything's going to go in the SEC's favor. Then there's also the XRP case, very, very expensive, very, very drawn out. Do you think that they thought about fight? Are they just going to walk away from a fight because too costly, too time consuming? Or do you think they might be walking away because they maybe feel they can't win?
You're asking if who's walking away from it?
Nexo, they're walking away. They're after 18 months, they gave up.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough question, because there's so much that happens at the dinner parties, as I like to say. There's so much that happens in the background that we just don't get to see, that we don't have, the clarity on to really answer the question. But I don't think they're just walking away for no good reason, right? They ultimately they make a lot of money, or have made a lot of money doing what they're doing. So I don't know why they would just step away for no reason. I think they probably have more clarity on the back end than we know. And so they probably looked at it, had the cards on the table, and said, listen, we could continue to string this along. It's like taking a plea. It's like taking a plea bargain. It's like taking a plea deal in a court case. It's like the attorney lays it out and says, hey, listen, here's where this could go, but this is really what it looks like. When you put all of these things together, this is where we're headed. Do you want to continue to pay me? Do you want to continue to press forward? Or do you want to take the deal? And maybe stepping away from the table right now was them taking the deal. That's the only thing that I could really come up with, because ultimately businesses don't like to walk away from money. They don't like to walk away from opportunity. And so if they're stepping away and they're shutting down, then there's been some direction in the background that's probably been, a stern talking to by the old Sleepy Joe and the crew, telling them what they can and can't do, like they do with everybody else on planet Earth right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's end it with this question. Joe, I'm going to bring up XRP, the XRP army. They love you. You're at least a colonel in their eyes. I would say you're a general in my eyes. But Nexo, I kind of want to talk about the shifting sands that is the SEC and their regulations. This is from Nexo's official Twitter here. Our decision comes after, like I said, the 18 months of good faith dialogue. Despite their inconsistent and changing positions, they've engaged in ongoing efforts. Do you think that a lot of these shifting positions and changing ideas, does the SEC versus XRP case maybe have anything to do with this? Do you feel like that might be the main catalyst for how we move in the future?
Yeah, I mean, this XRP case is really, really big. The library case is really big because it sets a precedent for like what all these other altcoins and other cryptos are going to be. I watched a really interesting video. Mark Moss made a video basically saying that all these altcoins are just going to be securities, and that the crypto market is just going to like completely go in the opposite direction. We're never going to see a bull market ever again. And that's like some strong words, but if you really like look into it, it's like there is like some evidence that like could happen. I'm not saying it is. I'm not trying to FUD the entire crypto market right now, but like you always have to do research in both directions, DZ, right? So it's really interesting to see. Like this XRP case has taken forever, but again, that's, you know, what we talked about in the last question, so I'm not surprised there. But yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting to see how they rule that, because that's going to be like, if it gets passed and it's like, yep, it's not a security, Ethereum's not a security, and, you know, Bitcoin's not a security, then okay, like it opens the door up for all these other crypto coins as well. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. That's all I can say at this point.
All right, point blank. Is XRP a security? I'm kidding. But do you think that Bitcoin is a commodity? I think Bitcoin's a commodity. I would go here. I would go out on a limb and say Bitcoin is a commodity. Do you agree, Joe?
For sure, 100%.
All right, Cowboy
is different.
Thumbs up, thumbs down. Bitcoin a commodity. All right, Forrest. Forrest, Bitcoin commodity, security,
Commodity.
All right, and Crypto Keeper. What do you say Bitcoin is?
You're asking Bitcoiners if it's a commodity or security. You know where we're headed, boy.
It's definitely a commodity. Give it to the CFTC people already. That's all I say. All right, that is all we have time for. And Cowboys of Crypto led with that top 5 list. I thought, you know, it was like half a David Letterman. No one was able to catch up after that. Cowboys of Crypto, you won. You know, some good showings from all the guests here. But feel free, take us away. Leave us with some parting thoughts, please.
Hey, thanks for having me on the channel, everyone. The chat was so hilarious. I was just watching it while we were streaming. Thank you to everyone on here. Look, if you guys don't know me, I'm just a lizard brain. I don't really understand the deep stuff about crypto. You're not going to get that from my channel. What you can get is people who hate fiat, people who hate centralized things. I do have a video on SBF. I watched hours and hours of video footage on him, and I just clipped them out for anyone who wants to watch it. So check that out if you would.
All right. I'll be looking forward to seeing the inability to stand still, sit still. All right. Until next time, BitSquad. Easy out.